Hey everybody, this is Jason Ostrowski, and welcome to another edition of the Everything Real Estate Podcast. Can you believe it? Memorial Day is already past us. We are in the first week of June, and we're halfway through the year. And so today, we wanted to have a halftime huddle with all of you, and we're going to take stock of the first half of the year, talk about the second half of the year and the 6 months ahead, and maybe some changes that you can make to maximize the second half of the year, keep you motivated, and keep you on track with my special guest, Debbie McCabe. Debbie is our Senior Vice President and Regional Manager of the Mainline and Center City. She brings 26 years of real estate experience and knowledge that she is going to share with us today. And it is officially her first time on the podcast, so we're really excited to have Debbie on today. So let's get right into it, and we'll pick it up on the other side. I have Regional Manager Extraordinaire Debbie McCabe on the podcast with me today. She is the Regional Manager for our Mainline and Center City areas. And Debbie, this is a long time coming. How are you today?
I'm great, Jason, and I'm very glad to be here with you. I love listening to your podcast. You know I do. There isn't a week that goes by. Once your podcast comes out, I listen to it every time.
Well, first off, I have to say thank you for that, because I know you are an avid listener, and I really, really appreciate you listening, number one, and your feedback, number two. And I wanted to get your take. We're going to do a halftime huddle today, you and me. And so in that huddle, we're going to talk about, number one, what you've seen so far this year, where we're going in the second half of the year and where you foresee that going. And then we're going to talk about reassessing our business plans, our marketing plans. We're going to get into a bunch of stuff today. So what have you seen in your footprint as regional manager so far that may have surprised you this year?
Well, I think starting off the year, what surprised us was how quickly things were going down. We were coming off the end of last year, 2022. And, there's a lot of pieces of this puzzle that are out there. There's the interest rates going up. There is the continued lack of inventory, which is just making it so hard out there. There's the economy issues. There's the debt ceiling issues. There's a lot going on. So I think we were all hopeful that the beginning of the year would spark something, and it didn't. The market continues to be down about 28%, give or take. My footprint, which you mentioned, is an interesting footprint because I actually am both the burbs and the city. And I will tell you, it is sort of a tale of two cities, as I call it. They're not alike. The burbs, as we know, are a little bit different than the city. And so I don't want to say it was surprising to me, but I think it is different for buyers and sellers. Sometimes you have people selling in the city, moving to the burbs, or vice versa. And they are different. What I'm seeing now, I think we're pacing through the year. And again, for this halftime huddle, what I want to say to everybody is don't expect a big change. You have to look at the market the way it is now. Don't keep holding out for what was in 2021, and don't keep looking for interest rates to go down. I think you have to look at where we are now and just make your decisions that probably not much is going to change by year end.
When I have a listing, I'm out in the suburbs, right? And you mentioned that you kind of straddle both lines, both in the city and in the suburbs on the main line. And I can always tell when I have a listing when a Center City agent makes an offer. I do have to tell you that because they write their offers completely different than what I see in Montgomery County. And a lot of agents are shocked to find the competition and the lengths that people will go to get properties in the suburbs. And to emphasize your point, I was just looking at like month supply of inventory in all counties around the Philadelphia metro area. And most of the suburbs are hovering around that 1% or 1 month supplies of inventory, not 1%. And Center City, Philadelphia is around 3. month supply of inventory. I don't know if that sounds right to you. I'm getting that from Agent Metrics, but they have it at 3. The surrounding suburbs are hovering around 1. And that really just goes to show where inventory is and where things may be dragging on and other things are moving obviously pretty quickly. 3 months supply of inventory is still really short on inventory. Like 5 to 6 months supply of inventory is a normal market. So clearly everybody's still in the seller's market, but you kind of temper it a little bit in Center City. So, we talked about obviously the first half of the year. You're talking about the second half of the year. Well, I'd said before we got on the podcast today that I saw that dreaded 7% for a 30-year fixed loan, on one of my rate sheets that I get in my email. So, I think, like you said, tempering expectations for the second half of the year is a smart decision. How do you think that's going to just affect our mindset moving forward as agents?
Well, I think, because again, there is so much noise out there, the mindset's tough because agents hear some economists or some people in the industry talk about, well, when rates return to 5%, that things will get better. And again, I don't want to set false expectations. Yeah, I think that would be a true statement, but I don't think you should sit back and wait for that. So I think your mindset has to be, this is the market we're in. What can I afford? What can my seller get for his house? And what can my buyers afford? And stop looking for the what ifs. Stop waiting for maybe something to get to the way you want it to be. It is what it is. We're going to keep moving forward with what we have today.
When the going gets tough, the tough get going, right? Yeah. And I feel like we all have to get going the second half of the year if we want the year to pan out the way that we think it's going to. It's just going to take some extra effort on our end to make that happen, but that doesn't mean that it can't happen or it won't. Yeah. And I'm just of the mindset that one way or another, I'm going to make my goals happen for myself. I just have to readjust my way of thinking. So, being halfway through the year also gives us the opportunity to adjust or readjust our business plans as well. And sometimes things surprise us, like we were talking about. Maybe we're doing a bit better than we thought, and sometimes we're not. And like Zig Ziglar said, if you aim at nothing, you will hit it every time. So why is it important for us to reassess our numbers now, know where we are in relation to our goals so that we can gear up for the rest of the year?
Well, I think, again, in any market, you should always do a halftime huddle for yourself. You should always look at what did the first half bring you and what did the second. And just like in any sport, just like in any halftime, just because you had a good first half does not mean you're going to have a good second. We saw that with our wonderful Sixers a few weeks ago. And so I think, but doing the assessment, doing the thought process, sitting down and taking that day to just look at where you are is important, and you should do it no matter what. So even if you've had an amazing first half of the year, don't sit back on your laurels. And if you've had a bad first half, if it's not what you expected, that's okay. You can adjust and you can rethink, okay, what am I going to do differently to maybe make up for what was down the first half? And there's a lot of ways to go about that.
For sure. I mean, one thing that I'm currently working on is that, I know that eventually Moxie is going to be sunsetted, right? So I'm working on my core present. I'm working on, my listing presentation. How can I kind of make that into the next iteration of my listing presentation, right? How can I do better in that regard? Because I feel like listings are at such a premium right now that if you get an opportunity to go out on these listing appointments, you have to do everything you can to possibly maximize, number one, your effort, but also your chances of getting these listings, because you don't get too many opportunities, right? So right. I'm thinking of every way that I can improve that right now,
Yeah, and that just brings up such an important thing that I want to highlight. A listing, if you're lucky enough to get them now, which is great if you're a listing agent, or even if you're not really and you get listings have branches. And really, for every listing you get, you should be getting 3 to 4 more deals in the pipeline from that listing. And if done right, that really can happen. And that's what I would say to every agent right now. If you have a listing or are getting a listing or have many, capitalize on them. Don't just have it open one day, have it open 3 days, have it, coming soon for a little while, because there is so much out there that the buyers have. They have all that information. We are seeing it, and I hear complaints, good and bad, but buyers will show up at listings without their agents. It's happening more frequently. Summer is a time this happens even more because people are away. If it's open on a Thursday night and a Friday night, great, because I can get there ahead. I don't have to wait. I'm going away this weekend. So listings to me right now should be used to get more business.
I mean, every listing is like a slingshot, right? That can slingshot you into another listing and another listing. And you and I were talking about, we were both at Breakfast of Champions this past week. And I was saying that an agent that I know that works with our company had an open house that I went to with my client. And there was over 100 people at our open house. And it was just insanity. But it gives you the opportunity to meet multiple potential new clients, whether that's on the buying side or the selling side. You never know who's going to show up at these things. And I agree with you. Like, hold more than one open house if you can, and do it on an off day like we talked about. Maybe you do it on an on day like a Saturday or Sunday, but also think about a Thursday or a Friday. I think that's a new opportunity that's out there right now. So I want to. Oh, go ahead.
Real quick, I just want to add the thought on that. And again, people should do this, especially if you're in a neighborhood. Why not have that sneak peek for the neighbors? So you're going to have an open house. Maybe you're doing it Saturday. Maybe you're doing it Sunday. Everybody typically works, and now there's different people. Some people work the night shift, whatever. But maybe you do that sneak peek for the neighborhood from 4 to 5 or 5 to 6, either right before an open or the day before, and invite the neighbors. How great. They love to see the inside of their neighbor's house or condo. They want to know what it's going for. How does my house compare to that? And you go out and you invite them, put a flyer on the outside of their mailbox, a door hanger, and make sure they know it is a sneak peek for this neighborhood. That should be done more than it is. It's a great opportunity.
It's a brilliant idea, because also it's a first chance to make a good impression on people. And sometimes when people show up to open houses, they don't think that you're going to be their listing agent, but they see the way that you operate. They get to meet you a little bit. It's a meet and greet, right? And if you do a good enough job, some people are going to use you to list their property when the time comes. So I think that's a great idea. That's another addition to the repertoire that we can have right now when we get these listings. So I wanted to ask you, because being a successful former agent yourself, if your numbers aren't where you would like them to be, how would you personally go about making some changes to your own business plan if you were still an agent? What would you do to reevaluate things for yourself? Maybe if you weren't where you were halfway through the year, where you wanted to be?
Well, the first thing I think you have to do is take an honest look at yourself. And I would tell you, Jason, when I talked about myself and my business, how it worked, or if you came to me for coaching or any of my agents, the first thing I think I always look at is how do I best get my business? And that's not the same answer for every agent. Some agents can cold call, they write letters, they do all kinds of things like that. And there are other agents that are mega $1 million producers that never do any of that. They do it all by referral. And there's no wrong answer, but I think the first thing you need to do as you sit down and look at your business plan is look at where you get your business. And if you mostly have listings or you have buyers or it's an equal thing, where did they come from? Know if they came from referrals. Know if they came from mailings that you sent. Know if they came from open houses. And then really think critically about yourself and decide, do you invest more in those things that worked? Or do you maybe take a chance on doing something you never have done? And there's no wrong answer to that, but knowing yourself and being authentic to who you are, because at the end of the day, we know that most people come to us in this business, whether we're listing agents or buyer's agents, because they know, like, and trust us. And for some reason, they want to use us. And you need to know who you are first and foremost.
Well, I think that's a great answer. It's like know thyself, right? It's like you have to have some kind of self introspection and then go from there. And honesty, with yourself too. Like if I'm not getting the referrals from past clients that I should be getting, you have to really think about, okay, why is that so? Why is that happening right now? In the same vein, like I every year I do almost a self audit, like on a weekly basis, right? Because I always know where basically my dollars are going and are they worthwhile, the return on investment, right? The ROI with everything, because I do spend a significant amount of money now marketing per month. And sometimes when that bill comes due, it's like, my eyes bulge out of my skull. So if it's not going to be worth it, and I don't know if it's going to be worth it, then what am I doing? I'm just sinking all this money into something that might not work, right? So I'm constantly reevaluating everything. And just like reevaluating our business plans, we also have to reevaluate our marketing plans. And, I'm now going to reach my quota on quotes for this episode and go with a Winston Churchill quote. Those that fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. We've all heard that quote before, but it's so true. Why is it so important to also know what's worked in the past for our marketing numbers so we can assess or reassess where we're currently spending our marketing dollars and where they should be going?
It is so important to look at where you're spending your marketing dollars, and different agents will do it differently, right? Some will be buying leads, Zillow leads or Realtor.com leads. Some of them send out magazines or gifts. Some spend a fortune on doing what I call Buffini type pop buys and touches to their clients, and they do that. Some sponsor charity events or get involved and get their name out there. Some take ads out in periodicals, Philadelphia Magazine, Mainline Today, whatever those are. You need to know, are you getting your money's worth from them, and where are you getting the biggest bang for your buck? And you need to reevaluate how you are spending your money, and I know not everybody is good at keeping track of that, but it doesn't take too long to look at your last 2 years worth of business and put a little column of where that person came from and did it work. Sometimes you don't always know either. You may do mailings and you may spend a lot on cards. And did you actually get a client? Well, did it really come from the social media you were doing? Sometimes you don't know because your name is just getting out there all the time and you don't know exactly where they found you from, but they know who you are.
That's the saturation of the market, right? I always look at it that way. It's brand awareness, and there's kind of like those different buckets when it comes to marketing. Well, some stuff you're not going to be able to quantify, but it's brand awareness, and other stuff is a direct quantification. Is that a word? Quantification? Quantification of, like, say, an RSP mailer. Someone calls me and said, I got you from your agent mailing. Like, I know where that came from. Or, a friend of mine refers a friend. I know exactly where that came from. But I, like you said, I always mark it down. If I'm putting someone into my CRM, if I'm putting them into my phone, I have to remind myself where the referral came from, because quite honestly, sometimes I forget, but that's a good thing. That means you're actually getting referrals, if you're getting enough referrals to forget where they came from, that's actually a positive. So I look at it that way, but I always make sure that I know where it's coming from. And, you had mentioned a bunch of different things there, and this leads me into my next question for you, because as regional manager, you get a great bird's eye view of what may work and what may not work for a bunch of agents in your region. And so if you'd be willing to share, what do you see working out there right now? Like, is there a pattern to maybe some successful agents and what they're doing right now that works, or is it kind of just what their niche is, right? What are some things that agents are doing to generate leads that kind of grab your attention right now?
So, right as you ask that question, a bunch of things do come to mind. And again, be authentic to who you are and what you're going to be good at. So I will tell you, video for sure and social media is working. It's working for agents that are consistent about it, that are getting themselves out there with good content that people want to see. It could be their new listing. It could be information about something in the community that they're doing. But video is definitely one thing I'm seeing some people capitalize on. I'm also seeing old school touches. So we all have the ability to send through our CRM and do all kinds of wonderful things with emails. But I will tell you personally, I'm seeing less postcards come into my mailbox than I used to. And I actually am reading them more than I used to. So people that are consistent, not just a once a year mailing, but agents that farm areas, that again, I'm seeing a slight resurgence for some of them that it is helping their business. I do believe, again, back to the social media, it is cheap. It sometimes is free. And real, authentic social media on all three platforms, on Facebook, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the most underutilized thing out there. And I think, again, that consistent people getting themselves out there among their friends, family, sphere, past coworkers, people they know, not just with 300 friends, but with thousands, that I am seeing there's a correlation between that. And then again, people that are consistent with the way they market themselves. And the key word is consistent. You have to figure out how to create a habit in yourself. And marketing, no matter what kind of marketing you do, how do you make that marketing a habit? And I have habits, you have habits that are other things in our life that have nothing to do with real estate, and we are really good at those habits sometimes. We need to create that mindset, that habit, that addiction to that habit, that we protect it. So for example, and I always bring it up because it is me, my protection for my running 5 days a week, it gets me crazy when I don't fulfill that habit. An agent needs to be like that about their marketing. And when you let a week go by and you don't fulfill that habit of the way you choose to market, things slip.
You know, it is such great advice that you just gave there, and tying it to your running, because, you know, one thing I've always admired about you is your consistency in your running and what you do. You're very regimented. You make sure, and when you go for a run, it's not like you're going for a run for like 10 minutes, you know, like the rest of us. Like you have to set aside a large amount of time to go running. There's an agent in my office, Tabitha Height, who shout out to Tabitha. She's the same way. She is a monster when it comes to like training and her schedule and all that stuff. It is really hard to balance that. But you know what? Where there's a will, there's a way. And I think we have to find that consistency, like you said.
Yeah, and it can be, the consistency, like, again, you have in running, or you have in what you do in your real estate career. And again, we have it. We do it in other things in life. We need to do it in our real estate careers. We need to know that every time you get in the car, you have a list in your car of who you're going to call.
Yeah. Yeah.
Past clients. You're driving down the street and you're like, I sold on this street 5 years ago. Well, you know what? Have that mindset that every time, and I have to be careful. I don't want to risk anybody's safety in the car, but every time you get in the car, make 4 calls. To people that you haven't talked to, or if you know that the minute you leave your house, the world changes, then get your marketing done every morning for an hour. Be consistent, and there's no wrong way to do it. The wrong way is when you're not consistent and you don't time block.
Yeah, well, my car is my mobile office, right? So like you said, like I'm constantly calling past clients. If I'm in an area that I sold, and like you said, in an area that I think about them, they pop up in my mind, I'll just pick up a phone and call them, just to make sure that I'm touching base and I'm thinking about my client list at all time. My warm list, so I have a Google spreadsheet, well, a Google Doc really, that is kind of a glorified warm list, right? And I constantly look at that. Who do I think would fit this property? I see a property come on the market. I'm thinking, who do I have for this property that I can reach out to? And usually I always have somebody, right? But without that list and without seeing that, it kind of slips my mind. So you have to be consistent.
I know an agent who gets the hot sheet every day, and she looks at what comes on the market, and she says, who do I know that lives close to that house that just came on the market? So whether they were a client or not. So something comes on 123 Main Street, and I know that my friend, my past client, with somebody lives down the street or in that neighborhood. And I call them and say, hey, something just came on in your neighborhood. I thought you'd want to know.
Yeah, so there's a house. So just like that, there's a house right around the corner from me that came on the market, right? And a good friend of mine who's been thinking about moving. I live in Ambler, so he was thinking about moving to Ambler. I sent it to him. He's like, "You're killing me." He's like, he said, "I wish I could do this right now. I can't do it right now, but keep sending me stuff because I'm going to run the numbers even to see if I can do this, but we're not too far away." So I know, maybe a year from now, he's going to be ready, but at least I'm piquing his interest, right? And I'm keeping him engaged about moving to my neighborhood. I want him to move to my neighborhood. It would be really cool. So, I'm always thinking about people that are in my life or circulating around me that may make sense for certain properties. So, we talked about consistency, and, I'm sure you're going to say much of the same thing, but what do you see out there making agents successful in this market? Is it that consistency? Is it a mindset? Is it kind of like that bulldog mentality right now? Because I feel like, we all have buyers, and sometimes it takes, 10 offers to get something accepted. What do you see the successful agents doing right now that is making them successful in this market?
Yeah, I do think it is the consistency we talked about, and that competitive nature, and just not giving up. Resiliency, I think, is key, because especially if you're a buyer's agent right now, you can't let that offer, 1, 2, 3, 5 offers you've put in, get you down. You need to explain that to the buyer that this is what we're going into, and you either get lucky on offer number 1 or you don't. But so resiliency, consistency, competitiveness, they're all the features I see of agents that are doing very well. They don't sit still, and they are constantly, okay, I have a lull right now. A good agent doesn't know what to do with themselves when they get a lull. And they think, I got to get busy again. And that busy could be, I'm going to write some letters, or, I'm going to do things whatever. But those are qualities I see in the top agents all the time, is that resiliency, consistency, and competitiveness.
Well, I will tell you, my wife knows I am a miserable human being when I'm slow. I'm beside myself. Like, I can't do enough when I'm slow to try and gain more business, because quite honestly, I have trouble sleeping when I'm slow. I think you had mentioned competitiveness, and it's always a competition with myself. I'm trying to beat myself. And that's what I think of constantly, is like, okay, how am I going to do better this year than the previous year? And so, I like to think of my business almost like I'm playing a video game against myself. I'm constantly trying to beat my high score. And so in order to do that and improve each year, I want to touch upon something that we don't focus on a lot, but I think will get us to that next level. And trying to better yourself in your profession and expand my real estate knowledge. So one thing I feel like we don't focus on a lot is continual education, and trying to better ourselves and our business through expanding our education, right, in our business. So do you feel like agents undervalue taking continuing ed courses in order to improve their business, and how can that help them get their business to the next level in your mind?
Yeah, I do think a lot of people choose continuing ed for them as a requirement. It's something they have to do, not that they want to do. And I will tell you what sort of landed me in this job I'm in now. was I always loved education. And somebody said to me early on, if you're going to take courses, you should also take courses that will help you get your broker's license. Mm-hmm. And that started me on this crazy path. But, when you actually look, well, what does it take to become an associate broker in the state you live in? That's sort of what I started doing. So, for example, when you become a broker, you have to take classes like management or appraisal classes. They're not always the go-to classes for the average agent, but I will tell you, learning about the appraisal process, that appraisal course, which is required for a broker, was huge. It helped me as an agent along the way. And we don't always think to take that class. Or getting certifications, I think, is a way to improve yourself. Getting a senior certification to work with seniors, or getting, certifications for other things like a BPO certification. You have to take classes anyway, so why not take a class to get you the next degree? That's the way I always looked at it. You wouldn't go to college and just sort of take classes all over the place. You'd have a goal. You have a degree. You just don't sign up for a class. Make part of continuing education a goal for yourself, and you will better yourself for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, just from a personal standpoint, two of the best classes that I ever took was, number one, a construction course.
Yes.
Learning how a house is built from scratch, from footers to baffles to, to everything in between. When you start as a real estate agent, you don't know these things. I mean, you have a vocabulary of technical terms in real estate. That's really what the real estate course is, right? But you don't know how a house is built, how an HVAC system may work, how, different types of construction. That was very important to my career. Also, Mike Walker, we've had him on the podcast before. His negotiation courses were some of the best courses that I ever took in reading people and personality. And especially in this market, when we may have multiple offers, how to negotiate effectively on multiple offers that we get, and getting the best price for our sellers. And also, Debbie, I know, you're heavily involved in this, but, at a local level, your association, your local realtor board, your associations, your committees, about to go out to Harrisburg for PAR meetings, right? It is an eye-opening experience if you go out there to some of these committees, panels. I think it's a lot of fun. Maybe I'm a total real estate nerd, but I think it's a lot of fun. I think you feel the same way, right?
Oh, absolutely. Just the ones we had last year were so fascinating when we were changing the agreement of sale. And there was a lot of language being tossed around about the mortgage clause and different things. And having been in that room when they overturned something that they were going to put in the standard forms was fascinating. But it not only was fascinating because they overturned this decision, you realize, again, there's so much in that agreement that we don't realize. And, as a manager and a broker, you do, because you're constantly pulling it out and reading the sentence that happens to be bolded. But again, being involved in the board and being involved at the state level, to me, everybody should do it at least once. It may not be your thing, but I think it is an experience that's part of being a realtor. And too many people don't take advantage of that experience.
I agree. And I think not only that, but you meet people, right? You never know what that can lead to. I'm a big proponent of, like, the more people you meet, it can not only better yourself, but better your business. And you're so right that, for all of us out there, and I know there are many of you because I've been one of them, where you read something, some kind of change to either an addendum or the agreement of sale, and you're like, that is so stupid. Like, why did this happen, right? Well, you have an opportunity to give your feedback when you go out to these meetings and be a part of the process, right? So instead of just complaining sometimes, let's be a part of the process and part of the solution and go out there and actually give your feedback, because we have good ideas. We should be sharing them. So anyway, all right, I'll get off my soapbox with that. All right, we're running out of time. So it is the unofficial start to the summer season now. All right. And I know you love Avalon. You love 7 Mile Island. I'm a huge Avalon person as well. I have to ask you, because this hurts me to my soul, I have to say. As a child, we would go here all the time. Are you as devastated as I am that this will be Kohler's Bakery's last season? And how can I convince you to steal the recipe for their crumb buns for me while you're down there?
Well, I don't know if you knew this when you invited me on this podcast, Jason. Did I tell you this? But I worked at Kohler's Bakery for
Get
5
out.
years.
No way. Well, I wish I knew you back in the day. I'd have you kind of, slipping me crumb buns on the side,
Well, I'll tell you, I was 15 years old when my mother walked me in August because all the college kids were going back. And she was a regular, and we were regular cream donut eaters on the weekends. And my mother knew the owners well. And she said, "Oh, we need somebody. Does Debbie want a job?" So I started in August when I was 15. And I lasted there till I was 20. And somewhere in my house, I do have the sweet dough recipe for Kohler's, which is what goes into the crumb buns and the sticky buns.
God, you're killing me right now.
So maybe, is
that going to be a violation? Is that is that trademarked or patented?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if I can find it in my cookbooks, but we did try to make them. I will tell you, I did make them when I was first married before I had kids, and they weren't that good. We did do it at home, and I laughed with my husband and my family because even though I had all the ingredients, it wasn't the same.
Yeah, it's hard to replicate those things. And the last time that I had them, I was staying in Cape May, and I woke my wife up at the crack of dawn to drive to Avalon to go to Kohler's, and we stood in line for about an hour, and I was worried that they were going to run out of the crumb buns. Got my hands on the warm crumb buns, brought them back, and I must have ate like a half a dozen of them. So thank God, actually, I do have to say I probably weigh a lot more than what I weigh right now if I had access to crumb buns all the time, So
I don't know if the picture's still in there, but for those listeners that are going into Kohler's, if you go into the shop that still exists, there's a lot of pictures up on the wall. And I challenge everybody to go find the one of me in the picture. But I have a braid
so
on my back.
Yeah, that is so cool. I never knew that. I never knew that. That's so neat. So, well, anyway, I hope that you enjoy your time down there. It's the unofficial start, like I said, the unofficial start to summer. And to all of you out there, I wish you the best of luck the second half of the year. Think about what Debbie said today, reevaluating your business plans, your marketing plans, and stick to it. Debbie, thank you so much for joining me today. It was a true pleasure. I always enjoy talking to you, and I'm sure I'll be seeing you soon.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And if anybody ever needs anything, I'm a phone call away. You can Google my number. It's there.
Thanks so much, Debbie. I'll talk to you soon. That was the interview this week. Here are a few takeaways from my conversation with Debbie. Number one, with all the headwinds that we may face this year in 2023, whether it be the extreme lack of inventory, running buyers around everywhere every day as soon as a new listing comes on the market, or the rising interest rates that are now hovering around 7% again, we have to focus on just staying steady, staying consistent in our business. This business is a lot like any other business. You get out of it what you put into it. And the more that you put into it, the more successful you will be. I'm a big believer in the real estate gods, right? They reward us eventually for the hard work that we put into things. So like Debbie said, whether the interest rates stay where they are or they fall in the second half of the year, if there's more listings that come on the market or the inventory stays the same, it is what it is. As Debbie said, you have to be stoic, keep plugging away and doing the right things every day, and you will be rewarded for it. Number two, if you are doing the right things and you are not being rewarded for it, then maybe it's time to reassess what you are doing and find out what works and what doesn't. As Debbie said, know thyself. She talks about in this podcast knowing where your business is coming from, focusing on what works, getting rid of what doesn't work. And if you need some inspiration or bounce some ideas off of someone, take one of your colleagues who's successful right now out to lunch, ask them for their advice, what they would do, and maybe incorporate something new into your marketing plan for the second half of the year. And last but not least, we talked about continuing ed. It can be a very underrated and unappreciated part of what we do in our profession. We often focus on the day-to-day stuff. We get lost in our business a lot of times, and rightfully so. We're very busy. But this is an important part of expanding your knowledge base, talking confidently about a subject with your clients that you may have learned about. And a lot of these designations have national databases where it may get you business from another part of the country. You may get a referral from another GRI or another CRS. Take a construction course or a broker's course, an ABR course. Expand your knowledge base. It's only going to lead to good things. Well, that's it for the podcast this week. We will be back in another couple of weeks with a new topic, a new guest. And as always, if you want to hear something that we haven't covered yet, please reach out to me, jason.ostrowski@foxroach.com. And if you haven't liked and subscribed to the podcast or left us a review yet, please do so. It helps us to reach more people. Once again, this is Jason Ostrowski saying stay safe out there, stay selling, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Everything Real Estate Podcast.